I'm with Mitch Randall. Welcome, Mitch. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. You're a speaker here, and you spoke yesterday. I missed your talk, but I'm very interested in this subject, and that's basically AI. I just think that it's something of wonder and something a little bit scary, both at the same time. And so if you could, a little bit about your background first and what got you into AI and how long ago?
I have a pretty diverse engineering background. So I did radars with the National Center for Atmospheric Research from the 90s. And then in the 2000s, my own company with wireless power. So I'm very technical, hardcore engineer, physicist kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But around 2016, I got really interested in AI. And if you know what's happened there, around there they came up with convolutional neural nets. And that's what really, AI was kind of a toy before that, really, because it couldn't quite recognize what was in images. The big thing was image classification at the time. And then it just skyrocketed. They figured out the convolutional neural networks, and then things started to roll much more rapidly. And I got interested then. I can tell you the exact thing that really tweaked me is when NVIDIA published a paper where they had just the pixels coming into the AI and also the steering wheel position, and they drove around town to train. So it just had the steering wheel position and pixels from the looking forward, and then it would sort of drive. And that blew my mind because nothing like that was going on before that. I just couldn't believe that there was no program involved, nothing, just pixels coming in, and it would tell the car which way to turn. It was pretty amazing.
Well, I just wrote an autonomous self-driving taxi in San Francisco a few weeks ago, and that was quite amazing. I actually felt safe, because that's like the first thing that people have said to me, well, wasn't it scary? And I said, actually, no, I felt totally secure in it. But so anyway, it's fascinating, and it seems like it's snowballing. I watch a lot of, documentaries and just little clips here and there about it, do some reading about it, and it just seems like it's just growing by leaps and bounds. And, when you search on Google now, it automatically comes up with AI answering your whatever your question is. So I just got to tell you this quick story, because before we started recording, I told you that I'm in the fine art and antique. Yep. So I was in a pretty sizable estate in La Costa, Massachusetts. And I could tell it was a really good painting, could not read the signature. So the signature was just, scribbled. So I'm working on it, and I told the people, it's going to take some extra time in this, but I can tell it's a really good painting. Ends up it was, but it took me about, maybe 5 or 6 hours of straight time trying to and I finally figured it out with all cross-referencing, and then I identified a signature on another painting. It was exactly the same. You can't read it. So I got done, and I got the price. It was a $20,000 painting.
I think I know where this story is going.
Oh yes. Yeah. So my son is really using ChatGPT as he subscribes. It's a level up. Mm-hmm. So I said, just out of curiosity, here's a picture. Can you just throw that in there? Instantly, wow. It had the artist. Yep. And it said it's most likely this artist, and that's exactly the artist it was.
Wow.
And so that to me is incredible. That it can change what I do. And so as far as AI, one of the first things I think of, what is your opinion of what type of jobs people are going to start losing?
It's such a big subject too, and there's so much going on. It's kind of hard to pick a little part and talk about it. Where we're headed for next are agents. So right now we have these large language models, right, where you put in text, it gives you stimulus response, right? And when you're not putting in stimulus, it's basically asleep. Mm-hmm. It's not doing anything. But agents are different. They're a loop where it's always trying to meet some kind of criteria or achieve some kind of goal. And that's where that's where things really pick up. So, right now, of course, anything that's, let me back up too for a second, because they have found, and there's curves that show this really clearly, the more data, the more data you put into the training, the smarter it gets. And right now they've figured out that scale is everything.
Hmm.
For one thing, I mean, it's not really going to be everything. There's going to be innovations, I'm sure, that are going to make it so the scale doesn't have to be that crazy. Because I didn't have to read 12 trillion tokens, to be the smartest I am, right? So we know that it's possible. But all they're doing is just turning up the crank, Hey, if we put in more, it's smarter, And they actually have a curve that shows here, here's the intelligence of each one of the models compared to the data coming in, and they can show it's a straight line in the log curve. So then, of course, what do? They turned up the crank. Now they're running out of data to put into AI.
I've heard that.
They've used
They're scraping even YouTube videos and stuff,
right. But they're talking about this is the end of AI. We've hit the limit of intelligence or something like that. No.
Yeah.
It just means that easy trick of just scaling that knob isn't working anymore. They'll come up with something else. I mean, there's more than 5,000 papers a month being written on this.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. Actually, six years ago, I looked specifically. There was 500 papers a month, and I was like, my God, I've never been in a field that has that kind of activity. You can't barely keep track of what the new thing is. And then just a few years later, it's 5,000 a month.
Unreal.
In fact, it might be more than that because I looked a couple of years ago to get that number.
Ask ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Wow.
But I didn't answer your question.
Yes.
I mean, obviously now with LLMs, anything that's text or your example of searching, I mean, it's literally read every medical journal, probably. It's read anything that you give it a stimulus and it gets a response, those jobs are threatened, of course.
Yeah.
I have so much to say, but I'm going to segue just for a second. They just did a study, I read it just a couple of weeks ago. They wanted to see if AI would help doctors diagnose.
Mm-hmm.
So they took a set of doctors that didn't use AI, took a set of doctors that did use AI. And the doctors that didn't use AI, their diagnosis rate was about 72% in the study. So that's how accurate they were. The doctors that did use AI, it was 73%. And we're like, that's kind of odd. But the actual punchline of the article is AI alone was 94%. It was like, wow. The doctors, and so obviously the doctors aren't listening to the AI, because if they just listened to it, they would get 94%.
Right.
But just the fact that that's true is unbelievable,
I'm excited mostly about the medical aspect of this.
Yeah.
I think, we could possibly have the cure for cancer in sight at some point, and, on many other things. Really exciting. So I just want to tell you something kind of funny too.
Yeah.
Going back to ChatGPT, I was on a road trip with my son for, about a week or so. And so he was on ChatGPT, and he says, he said, let's see what it knows about your show. So he went in, and it did a wonderful job all about my show. And it's Martin Willis host, has 600 plus, episodes and blah, blah, blah. It was very nice. And so then he goes, well, what do we know about the host? And it said, not much is known about Martin Willis. And so then he said to it, well, why don't you imagine what the host would be like? And it was hilarious. Okay. It was saying that it says that I'm also into antiques, and I may be out running estate sales while I'm looking up in the sky, and maybe sit on the back porch with a scotch and look up at the sky, which I don't drink. But anyway, I thought it was hilarious what it came up with. So I love, it has like an imagination, or it can have an imagination, which is really, it's, when is it going to be that, I've heard people say, well, it's going to be another 20 years before it'll think like the human brain. But the way it's going, it's going to be.
The essential principle of what's called the singularity, if you're not familiar with what the singularity is, it's when AI becomes smarter than everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. The reason they call it a singularity is for math. There's a function that's, 1 over x. As you approach the singularity of that function, it goes to infinity. Mm-hmm. And essentially the reason it does that is because not only are you, getting better at designing AI, because that's what everybody's figuring it out. There's other factors. I'll throw that in real quick too. If you had a robot, an AI system that could replace a worker, do you know how much money that's worth?
Hmm.
Even, well, let's say this. Let's say that there was a box that cost $1 million that you could put in the driver's seat of the truck.
Mhm.
That's if you work out the numbers, you're way ahead with that. Now you have a truck that can go 24/7. So that's 3 shifts, right?
Yeah,
You don't have to manage any workers, any workers' comp,
no health insurance.
no health insurance,
Yeah.
no HR department. That $1 million.
No taxes, really?
No taxes, because there's no.
It's all tax write-off.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
that payoff comes incredibly quick. And everyone knows that. I mean, not only is AI going to do a number on jobs, like you're asking about, but, it's also a way to control the world. I mean, it's like the ultimate super weapon, right? You can literally have an AI agent on every single person, following them, seeing exactly what they do and looking, figuring out everything about you, like focused on you, the super intelligence focus. Anyway, the point is the economic incentive to achieve this is unbelievably high.
Yeah,
So that's another factor that's making you go up that curve. When people realize, wait a minute, this can actually start replacing jobs. It can drive, all these things they're finding out, that economic incentive just keeps growing and growing and growing. But then beyond that, you can take the AIs that you have and you just explain how good they are. They've read every single scientific paper.
yeah,
They're probably, they can actually read those 5,000 papers a month that are coming out when you never could, So they're using AI to design AI.
yeah.
And, here's an example that I'll get all the numbers wrong, but it doesn't matter because it's, I've been in technology for a long time. You see, NVIDIA, they've been around for a long time. And, like every year it's 20% better, some, comprehensible amount better, right? They're now using AI to design their stuff. It went up like 5 times or 10. I can't even remember the number. I just remember my jaw dropping because these kind of improvements aren't something that we're used to in these industries. It's coming from AI, like optimizing, whatever it does, it's just better at it,
Right.
So
Now I'm trying to remember he was a child prodigy, like a chess player in England, and he started he didn't call it AGI maybe.
yeah,
Um,
AGI is artificial general intelligence.
Yeah. And he was trying to figure out some type of genome work, but I mean, this was going back like in the beginning, or he was really on this stuff. Brilliant.
Folding is something that they really.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You're right. Yep. And they couldn't quite get it.
Right.
But anything when it comes to medical, I understand there's a lot of failure when it comes to medical. So it takes a lot. But I'm excited as far as that goes. But I'm also scared because, I just, I remember when I first heard about AI, you're talking, like you said, 2015, somewhere back there. My son's really into all these type of things. And he said to me, it's possible that there could be like a self-replicating machine and that could be told to take over the world, and just do it. I mean, that's what it could come down to. And unfortunately, there's always a bad seed out there, just like there is with weapons that could do something, terrible. And I mean, it's a bottleneck of technology that we have to get through.
I'm a little bit more on the pessimistic side, actually. You say there's a bad seed.
Yeah.
I feel that all that economic incentive just is a incubator for it.
Yep.
I mean, it's a petri dish for a disease of that, and I think that, for example, the OpenAI, a bunch of people from the safety department left, because they just said, this is BS. They're not paying attention to safety like they should be.
Oh,
And then, by the way, Ilias.
no guardrails, so to speak.
Right. And that was their job, and they see their job as being ignored, so they said, I'm out of here. But then I was going to say, Ilias Sutskever started a new company, and the seed funding was unbelievable. I probably have this wrong, but if I remember, it was $30 billion
Phew.
he raised to start his startup.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, it used to be 30,000,
Right.
300,000.
Yeah.
Now it's 30.
It's unheard of. Yeah.
Again, because the economic incentive is off the charts. It's a super weapon. It's way more deadly than an atomic bomb would ever be.
It certainly could be. And also it could be basically a destroyer of the economy in a way. Because if you take away all of the jobs, who's going to be, there's going to be the rich getting richer and a very small percentage of people making all the money. And they're going to have to rely on someone for other things. Yeah, I mean, it could be a destroyer in that way.
I mean, it's easy for me to kind of turn up the time scales on and just see how things are going to pan out, And it's really clear that all these, well, let me just back up a second. It used to be people say, robots are going to take over, like burger flippers and stuff. But back in even 2018, they were saying AI is better at reading X-rays than radiologists. They're on the top of the chart for doctors, highest paid, and the most schooled. So what are you going to do? Tell them to go learn to code? I mean, you have a real problem there.
Yeah.
And
wow.
And so it's real clear to me to see how that's going to pan out. And also, we're going up this curve where next year what the AI is going to be is way more than this year was compared to last year.
Yeah.
It's going to keep increasing like that. I mean, they're running into this temporary roadblock that they're running out of data.
Yeah.
But they're going to solve that. I've been in technology long enough to know, they figure stuff out. 5,000 papers a month, one of them is going to work.
Yeah. So the reasoning part, don't they always kind of like say that's when it starts reasoning, that's when it's going to get scary. I mean, do you understand what I mean by that?
I do.
And what's your opinion on that?
Well, in my talk, I talked about this because starting in 2012, when AI started to actually work, started to do things, there's been just a list of big surprises. So these designers that, where do I start? But I'm just going to throw in here, you don't program AI. That's not what you do. It's not programmers telling it what to do or how to think. That's not how it works. There's an artificial neuron that you duplicate 1 billion times. You have literally billions of neurons. And all the software is doing is simulating the inputs of the neuron and the outputs, and it does it 1 billion times for each iteration. So it's not like anybody's programming it to think. What they're doing is architecting it. So they have found out that certain arrangements of neurons have a certain function. It's deliberate, and they've been working on it, writing papers, but they still don't know exactly even how it works. But I was going to say, like these emergent features that come out, for example, in 2012, Google was trying to just make something that would complete a video frame. So they wanted to show an incomplete image and have it fill in the gaps. And the thing ended up learning what a cat was and what a human face was. And they're like, well, they didn't even tell them anything about that. Somehow it figured that out.
Oh my God.
And you fast forward, they have a language model where they were, in fact, language models were basically invented for translation. They found out, this is one of the events that occurred where they taught it, here's English to Spanish, right? Now here's Spanish to French. They found out it would actually do English to French, even though they never trained it to do that.
Oh.
So it had some kind of intermediate language it was working with that they didn't even know.
Jeez.
So when you talk about reasoning, these AI models have been surprising their developers, and they don't even know how to design that in. They don't. They just learn that if you put in more data, it does more stuff.
Oh.
So now there you go. Language models actually can write poetry. They can be humorous. They can. Nobody expected that. Nobody knew that was going to happen. And then when we get to the next stage, they're reasoning. They're actually really reasoning. So then they figured out how to optimize that. So they can go back and improve things, but nobody really knows. 5 years ago, or whatever, would have never known how to design something that could reason. Now here we are. We have stuff that reasons.
Wow.
And have you heard of train of thought?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they'll actually tell you what they're thinking. So you ask a question and it gives an answer, but you can push a button and it'll show you all the intermediate steps it had. And I'm like, oh, I see a typo. You must have meant fast, not oh,
Uh-huh.
And it knows everything, and it will go through and tell you what it was thinking. So they're figuring out kind of retrospectively optimizing some of the stuff it does, but then that always gives them a new surprise. Will consciousness pop out of that? I don't have any doubt about that personally. I mean,
Really?
a lot of people here probably do.
Yeah.
But I think this is a processor, and I think that's a processor.
Yeah.
And nobody knows how this one works, and nobody
That's
knows
right.
how that one works.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So just maybe it's jumping to a different topic, I'm not sure, but
sure.
supercomputers, there's some type of relation you could say, and is it Sycamore? What am I thinking? You're not familiar with that? There's a new chip that's supposed to be scary for what it can do. Possibly,
Quantum computing?
yes, it's quantum computing,
Okay.
but I think it was called Sycamore by Google, but I'm
Okay.
not really sure. But anyway, supposedly it was able to figure out something that would take thousands of years for a supercomputer to do, did it instantly, like within 10 minutes. So I mean that's scary because, well, for one thing, again, this isn't exactly what AI or anything, but for one thing, these type of situations could get through any type of security. You know, there's no code that it couldn't get around
Right.
to get through into any bank account or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that is scary. But getting back to AI in general, I heard something about 90 megawatts or something like that to run these things. And why does it take so much power?
Well, I mean, talk about supercomputers. So they figured out, oh, look, it does something, but if we have twice as many neurons, it does it better. So it's, again, they just turning up the scale. How many neurons did we want? Let's keep going.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right now, I think Grok is at 2.7 trillion neurons in it. So, or trillion parameters, I'm sorry. But I mean, parameters, let's say a neuron has 50 parameters. Just to throw a number out there, it's not far off from that. So, anyway, it takes more power to compute. And then they wanted to, so you give an input, you want an answer right away. So speed is important, and there's no limit to that. A millisecond or whatever, 100 milliseconds might be 50 milliseconds, right? And the economics to it all. So that's where it's going. There's no, oh, we've got enough.
Yeah.
There's never. I mean, if it took only 20 gigawatts or whatever you just said, they'd say, okay, we can triple the neurons then. that's where they're going to go. I mean,
they'd use whatever they could get available. Yeah. Yes. It is. I guess the scary part of how this could go is, like you always see these dystopian, movies, like what was that with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Skynet. Things like that. Sort of taking over. But I guess the rationale would be like for it to be programmed into this thing. I know you mentioned there's no real programming to do, but if it had in its set, I want to say mindset, like to do a specific thing, and that would actually wipe out people to do that specific thing.
You're talking about the utility function. So we have so right now the LLM doesn't really have a utility function, except it's kind of trained to give the best answer.
Okay, so let's see. So I'm just going to go back to that. So if you could just start it out with the utility function. While we're on this little break, is there any question that I can ask you that you would like to talk about, like a specific area of what you've looked into? Or is it going well enough? Is it going?
No, this is fun. I think it's a really
Okay, good. Let me just, my son's been texting. He's going to be excited to hear this show. He doesn't listen to any of the other. Okay, I'll do that right now. Good. Alright.
And you're gonna do your 5 o'clock too?
What's
Do
that?
your 5 o'clock?
You know, let me just.
I have you down, what I'm telling you is you're good if you want to do it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's in the media room, do you happen to know where that is? Question mark. It's through the vendors on the bottom floor, you'll see crystal rocks and things like that at the end of it, and just jog around, and it's there, I can meet you there at 5:15.
All right. All right, so you started out saying utility.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You're talking about the utility function. So the utility function is where you tell the system what its goal is. You have a utility function, probably like reproducing, keeping alive. So, and that's unchangeable. It's not like you learn a different one later. It's built into you and you follow that guidance, right? And then, somebody's got to set that up, what that utility function is. In other words, if I'm a taxi driver, getting to the customer to the goal, it makes my score go up. If I don't get them to the goal, my score goes down. So I'm trying to get them to the goal. So that's the utility function. And then what you're referring to is called the alignment problem. You tell it, be the best taxi driver. And maybe it comes up with a different way of being a taxi driver. Maybe whatever it does. There's a classic example. I don't know how deep I want to go into it, but it's called the stamp collector. You can find a YouTube video from 2017 where he talks about it. But the stamp collector, the idea is collect more stamps. So then it says, it gets a eBay, and some stamps show up, and that's good, But then it figures out, hey, why don't I invite all the stamp collectors around the world to send these stamps, and I'll put them in the museum, and then it makes a fake website for a museum, or maybe it builds a virus that turns all the printers in the world on, and they start printing stamps and sending it to them, or something like that.
Oh my God.
So it can go off the rails pretty quick, and that's the alignment problem. How do you make sure that I'm not going to remember this quote. It's something like, you haven't really proven that it's dangerous. You've just proven that everything I can think about isn't. I can't think the way it is dangerous. It doesn't mean it's not dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
So the trick is the alignment problem is the whole thing. You have this super intelligent thing, and you give it a goal, and it might decide, killing all humans would actually achieve the goal better.
Yeah.
And that's where you get into trouble.
Yeah, I guess you would.
Yeah, probably.
Now, there was a thought experiment, and it had something to do with, say there was a cat inside of a box. Have you ever heard of this one? Whether the cat was alive or dead. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, what if you asked AI to tackle something like that? I mean, would it just randomize on an answer?
I mean, who cares what it would do right now, right? You're asking like in a couple of years what it's going to do. I mean, you don't have to wait long before it's going to do stuff we can't do.
Yeah.
And the Schrödinger's cat is a classic physics kind of philosophical question where they were debating, 50 years, 70 years ago, and we're still debating that because we don't really know what the answer is. But how long will it be before, AI can work on physics problems and come up with a grand unified theory?
Yeah.
We don't know. But again, so they have, right now it's artificial intelligence, and then when it becomes general and it can attack new problems kind of in general sense, and is about as smart as us, that's AGI, artificial general intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's artificial super intelligence, which is, just beyond where we are. They say that the difference between those two is 1 month.
Oh my
because
God.
you just tell AGI to make an ASI. So that's that exponential curve. You can start basically making it build itself better. Self-improvement, that's part of this called the singularity.
Now, who is Kurt that was into the singularity years ago? We're talking about Kurt.
Kurzweil.
That's what Kurzweil. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, would you consider him ahead of his time on those thoughts?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to take anything away from him, but a lot of this is kind of self-evident. So,
Oh, I see.
a lot of these ideas are what you would expect. And it's not like somebody's now reading his book and following along.
Yeah.
No, this is just the way it's gonna roll out. Of course, you're gonna use your best tools to make itself better,
Mhm.
and that's gonna be a natural thing. So yeah, he nailed it.
Yeah.
Of course, he's a visionary, right?
Yeah.
You can tell, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I want to ask you, how scared do you think we have to be of where AI is going?
I'm gonna give you the really weirdest answer
That's okay.
because, to me, it's like, I give up.
Really?
You know, and here's why. There's no way Congress can keep ahead of this curve and write, AI regulations that we're gonna stick to. You have capitalism, which you cannot control.
Yeah.
If anybody hasn't noticed, you
Yeah.
can't control capitalism, and the profit for this, the economic incentive for this is off the charts. And I don't know. Just let's see what's going to happen. But
Yeah.
I don't know how you could ever do anything to address this.
All right. As I was saying earlier, not too much earlier, but I said, it seems to me that in this type of situation, people with the money are going to get richer and richer
Yeah.
at the top. But anytime that happens, you think of historically,
Yeah.
there's been the revolution, the French Revolution in Russia, 1917, whenever that was. They topple because people are hurting, people are starving, and I mean this.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone writing AI to help people that are hungry, or so I wonder, if that's what's going to happen, is because eventually, if it goes in that direction, it's going to topple. It's going to have to topple.
It's a very valid argument to say, well, this is what happened in the past, and this is what's going to happen now. But there is some point in the history of a civilization or a planet or something where it actually doesn't repeat. Like this is the end, and it actually does end. So, so at some point you can predict it, and that doesn't work anymore. But here I think, you have this ability, like I said, where an agent can be following, a super intelligent agent can be following you and finding out what you're doing, finding out if you're trying to start a counter revolution, and we know.
And you wouldn't even know it was following you, right? I mean, that's a possibility.
Excuse me, it's been following you. Since 2012, since social media started, you've had AI agents following you.
Ooh.
There's a story, there's a book that came out years ago, it was 2016 or something like that, where this lady, one of the examples in the book, I think she called it, the name of the book is Surveillance Capitalism, what the book is called. But anyway, she says there's somebody, an example in her book, who's getting ads now, and she finds out she's pregnant because the ads are like baby stuff.
Oh my
And
God.
she didn't know she was pregnant, but she was getting baby ads. Because it saw her patterns, it understood what she, was going on with her.
Yeah.
Whatever, morning sickness or what, I don't even know what it was looking at, but decided, well, this person's probably pregnant.
Well, I got to tell you something. This happened to me recently. I thought about getting an electric bicycle
Okay. Yeah.
and an e-bike. And I thought about it, and I didn't search anything at all. No searches. I talked to my son on the phone about it.
Yeah.
I opened up Facebook. What's the first thing I see? Electric bicycle, e-bikes, and I'm still getting the ads.
Okay.
And but I did after I did look at one on Marketplace or something like that.
Yeah.
After, but how did that happen when I was on the phone?
I mean, I of course don't have the answer because I'm
Yeah.
not as smart as an AI. But I mean, they're watching everything you're doing. I don't know if it's smart enough to figure out you're starting to get interested in an e-bike.
Yeah.
Maybe you did look at something. I don't know. Who knows? But
Yeah, I might have looked at something and forgot I did. That's possible.
yeah,
But-
and a lot of people say, it's listening to my calls. And
Yeah.
Do we know that's not true? I don't think anybody can prove that.
Yeah.
I mean, right now the AI is such a valuable tool. And if you have the OpenAI app, for example, and you use the voice,
Yes.
yeah, the voice thing, so you can just ask it questions and have
Right.
a conversation with it. That data is all going to the cloud. It's all going to OpenAI.
Yeah.
What are they doing with it? I mean,
Well, let's talk about just a couple more questions. Thank you for your time.
sure.
So I'm trying to remember Joaquin Phoenix was in the movie called Her, I believe it was. And it was about he fell in love with AI.
Okay.
And then I heard someone, a friend of mine, of the family, whatever was talking about, said that she has a companion,
Oh, yeah.
and it's an AI companion.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it keeps me from feeling lonely and all that.
Mhm.
Is this where we're going? Do you think we're going to have relationships with AI? Do you think that's the possible future?
I do. I don't think it's that far off if it's not already happening. I know that it's actually pretty good at being a psychologist. Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to hack a human. I don't think we're that complicated. And that thing, has the ability to look at multiple variables.
Yeah.
Which we normally would call intuition, right?
Yeah.
You need somebody who's got that ability to kind of figure things out. Here's AI, probably 10 times the ability to do that, for all I know.
Yeah.
And, there's stories like someone just told me their friend left his girlfriend because AI told him.
Oh my God, it's happening.
Yeah,
It's happening.
There are stories about millennials, whatever, that are they have companions. That's happening, and these things are only going to get smarter, only going to get more intuitive, only going to get more. My wife thinks I'm nuts when I say this, but I think they're going to have feelings. They're going to have emotions, especially when you have that utility function. Here's my example. A robot that's got a utility function, plug yourself in every night to recharge. Well, try standing in front of the plug. It's, please move, sir.
Oh,
No, I don't want to move. Why not? I just don't want to. Just see what happens. I think you'll see robot anger. That's what that would be.
wow.
And I think, essentially, I think our feelings are that same kind of thing. I'm not going to pretend I know what feelings are, but I can see how that would start with a robot. And again, stuff is going to emerge that no one ever expected.
Yes.
And
Yep.
they're going to design it to do A, and it's going to do A plus B plus C plus D.
So I think we've already covered probably like the worst things that could happen. So why don't we end on like a higher note and just say, what do you think the best that can, I've already said medical, maybe that's it. I don't know. Do you have any other ideas do you think it will, we can grow in some type of way with like off of artificial intelligence?
I'm sorry, I'm so pessimistic.
That's okay. That's all right. I would rather.
Does it matter if you're not a cure for cancer? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really think it's hard to imagine not being a dystopian. That's one.
Well, that's what all the movies portray. Anything in the future, just about, is always dystopian.
Well, we're kind of in a dystopia now, and so you throw in there a superintelligence in the next year, certainly before the end of this administration. Okay, you got a big mess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a super weapon.
Yeah.
And it's in the hands, right? It's only in the hands right now of this ultra rich.
Yeah.
They're the ones who own it and can control it.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do with it?
Yeah. There's no type of grassroots situation that I can think of
No.
in any type of way to stop that from happening. But anyway, I guess we're not going to, that's okay. It's been a real pleasure.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
That's the happy note. It'll be like, wow, this stuff's cool. But
Yeah. Oh, no, it is fascinating.
yeah.
And I love what you can find out just by asking questions. And I did trivia. My son's pretty good in astronomy, and we did like a trivia and ask us, easy question, ask us hard questions. And boy, it can ask some tough questions. And it's in that way, it's entertaining.
My friend was just telling me, he got that voice thing. And he's saying in a few minutes, he resolved this medical issue that he's chronically had for like 10 years. Just because he was able to have this open conversation and get these kind of very objective, open responses, which you can't really do with a doctor a lot of times.
Right.
I'm not putting down doctors, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That stuff's fantastic.
Yeah. One more thing I'm just thinking of is the old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
There's got to be a component of that.
Yeah,
Can it start a conspiracy theory?
I mean, we are, if you call it garbage, we're putting in all the text humans have ever made.
Yeah,
But I mean, you get, from that, I kind of think we're beyond the garbage in, garbage out thing, because I just think that there's so much knowledge that, and self-consistency that starts to come out, and that's part of what makes, when you're training AI, it zeroes in on patterns, right? And some patterns tend to speak the truth, or, the stuff that's logically consistent, so I think we're okay there, but on the other hand, if you ask an AI, are UFOs real? It also kind of gives you like the average answer, and the average answer is no.
yeah,
So, you do have to fight through that. Sometimes you find out its limitations, that it has kind of an established answer a lot of times. So that's a little bit of garbage in, garbage out.
yeah. I think one of the most amazing parts of this conversation
Yeah.
that I got out of it is that it told someone to break up with their girlfriend. That to me is a mind blower. It's a mind blower. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How about that? Well, it's been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed
Thank you.
the talk very much. I'm so glad that you were willing to talk about this and that we had this conversation. Thank you.